Hello there, welcome to another episode of Tales of the Buller, and I've got sitting across from me here one Gerald Hart, who's a well-known figure in this region and very major sporting figure for the Buller, has represented Buller at multiple sports and has had a pretty interesting life, I can tell you. So, how are you, Gerald?
Very well. Mike, cheers for those kind words, mate.
That's all right, they're all true, mate. So, I think I'll just start off by saying, just if you tell us where you were born, where you grew up, all that sort of thing.
Back in the day, three quarters of a century ago, 75 years, born in Westport, the old maternity home. Graduated to the South School as 5 years old and spent the next 7 years there at the Westport South School. Moved on to Buller High School for 3 years, and that was the early life. That was my schooling life. Had a good upbringing, 6 children plus myself and the family made 7, 3 sisters and 3 brothers. So a large family, yeah.
That's bloody cool. That's excellent. So, a real local, in other words. So when did you first discover that you had some talent in the sporting world?
I've always been sport-minded at kids. I think it was easy to get out of schoolwork if you just, if you loved playing sport or waited to get out. That was my main interest. Mine in those days was cricket and rugby. But yeah, so very early, played JAB, probably 7 or 8 years age. We used to all have the weigh-in at the old Victoria Square, all the clubs. So yeah, hundreds of kids there from all around the district, out country and that. So interesting days then.
That was excellent. When was your first rep experience?
Graduated to Westport Seniors, of course, and then come on to when I was 18 or nearly 19, and first played Buller Seniors. So for the next 11, 12 years, I think I represented Buller. Missed one game, got dropped because I was a smart ass and taking it too easy. So that was a wake. I actually got on to that game, but that was a wake up. So yeah, so those next 12 games, played 90 odd games, and yeah, that was interesting times. Outside that, we were lucky, bad times and good times, but we went through a real good period. The year after I was captain, and then a Kelvin Cochran came from Christchurch, played for Canterbury, and a lot of the young Knockawall boys. It was a changing of the guard from the old Westport days, so we had interesting times. 3 Ranfurly Shield games, played against Aussie, that we won.
Yes, I've heard of that game.
And then played the British Lions. That was before Aussie. Down there we got a bit of a dicking. They had one David Duckham who scored 6 tries in the first half, but by deed poll I was allowed to change his name, and I changed his name to David Fuckham. Yeah. So then after that, and then so that was those 2 representative teams when I played against Fiji, Western Samoa and Tonga. I always remember kicking a drop goal against Tonga. They're all charging towards me, talking in their mad lingo. I thought I was going to get assassinated. I think I might have been only 18 or 19, so that was a raking to the real island sort of rugby, yeah.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's amazing. I think we might go back to a couple of those games.
Yeah.
I just want to drop back a little bit there. So, like when you were growing up, how was Westport different to what it is now? Was it a lot smaller? Or?
In the town, well, I've always gone on now because I worked in the bush when I first left school. That was my first job, and like the town was bustling, yeah, but the rugby players were mainly miners, worked in the bush, or the farmers, and I know it's changed now because of the professional, but I think the camaraderie, and especially from a smaller town like us, and we always played above ourselves, but it was always good. But there was hard things. I think I always look back at all the backs that I played with, and I could have picked a team out of all the ones that would have been good enough, those backs, to have played against any representative team in New Zealand. It was only that the forwards were never big enough and that. But we had good games against the likes of Canterbury and Otago. I played against most unions, and so I've been a lucky career there.
That's fantastic, isn't it? I mean, so you've travelled the length of the country playing rugby.
Yep.
Wow, crazy stuff. So what were you doing in the bush?
what, sorry?
When you were working in the bush,
Yeah,
what were you doing? Logging, forestry?
yeah, for Hardy and Thompson till they closed down for 2 years, falling timber.
Oh, yeah.
And that, yeah, it was a great life in the summer. Shit in the bloody winter, cold and freezing. But it was a good life, and that's what I says, it hardened you up. I was there when I was 15, yeah, out of school when I was 15. So they were the early formative days. I think the old man got me up there and got me away from school. So, yeah, so that was good days, yeah.
Yeah, my dad said exactly the same.
Same, yeah.
Very good in the summer and not so great in the winter.
Yeah.
So when did you meet Jeff?
Richards?
Yep.
I wish I never had it, but that's one of those things, and that's life. We had interesting. He was always in rugby. He's a couple of years younger than me, but he was always there with sport, cricket, and rugby. As a good teammate and that. But he's pretty laid back, Jeff, and he hasn't much responsible on the football field. He'd be back with me at football or talking to every bastard in the crowd. So one year, when towards the end of my career, and he was playing, I had him out on the wing. He could run a bit. And I had another joker that was at centre. He was a big fella, and we weren't getting much ball on the forwards, so I decided to put him into the bloody backs. So I put Jeff into number 8. Jeff's very homophobic, and the boy that was at number 8 that had taken from centre, he was a bit gay. So I can tell you what, our scrum never went backwards after that.
Oh, sorry, I'm just catching my breath there.
Yeah, they were good days, mate. Yeah.
Oh,
So he's a good mate, and he loves sport. He's like me. We've travelled the bloody between the top of New Zealand, the bottom of New Zealand, and over to bloody Aussie. He could have killed me in the last World Cup. We went to Wellington. Me and the foresight, I thought that New Zealand would have got beaten by Aussie, and we would have played them again or one of the other teams in Sydney. But we beat Aussie, and then we went on and beat South Africa in Auckland while we were sitting in Sydney. But we had a great bloody time amongst the Aussies and all the South Africans over there. And then ended up watching Aussie demolish India. But that was a great part of the bloody cricketing world with all those Indians, with all the buses and that topless buses. Sold out ground, and there was thousands outside round and round and round. But that was the end of theirs, and we went on to play the final. But that was another story. That was down in Melbourne, but wasn't the best results. But at least we were in the final.
Just on a side note here, I've only known Gerald for a couple of years, but it's already come to my attention that Gerald has this happy knack of going to a sporting event, and that just happens to be one of the most memorable sporting events in the history of that sport. Multiple times. Like, the first one I heard was that Jonathan Thurston's last game. You were at that one.
2011, yeah, and I took over 2 of my grandkids, and one of my best mates was over there, Rusty Roberts, and my daughter, Stephanie, and it was a toss-up. It's the 2 Brisbane teams, and the Cowboys, and we only took the Cowboys were only the favourite. They were paying $1.45 on the tote, and the Brisbane Broncos, they were the other team, $1.55. So we went and got all our gear for the bloody the Cowboys, and hence it was like a dream come true. But yeah, Jonathan Thurston's probably one of the best players I've ever seen in my day, and there's lots of them.
Me too. In league, it's like him and
Wally Lewis. And
Wally Lewis,
yeah,
but I'd give it to Jonathan
Thurston, yeah. So he's just waiting for the Hall of Famer. So that'll be a couple of years yet. But yeah, great man, great laugh, contagious laugh. Probably got the best laugh of any rugby league player ever.
Yeah, I actually just watched a YouTube video of that. A compilation of it, just him laughing. What was it called? The Kookaburra.
The Kookaburra, yeah, great man.
Actually, I remember now, I was having a beer with Gerald a few weeks ago there, and he just happened to mention something that I just found fascinating, and I still do. I'd love to hear it again, mate. It's the Billy T. James story.
Yeah, well, my oldest son, Wayne, was 13, just started high school, and he come home one day at lunchtime. They used to come home, kids, there was 100 bikes in those days, or 1,000 bikes at high school. You don't see anybody on push bikes now, all getting dropped off with their parents and that. Health and safety, world gone mad. And he come home and he had a kind of a racing heart. His heart was bloody well ping, ping, pinging. So it settled down, got him to the doctor and it settled down. And then about a week later he came home and it was a hailing wind and he biking into the wind and the same thing again. So we got him to the hospital and within 3 days he was up in Green Lane Hospital. So at the time up there was a place called Hart Towers and he was waiting for a racing heart. It just crossfires and that. But it's a major operation and the same as what Richard Hadley actually had. Richard Hadley got a bit more bloody news out of it than what we did. But then Hardy Boys, I think was at the time, the specialist. And we're in a place called Hardy Towers and at the same time up there was one Billy T. James waiting for his heart transplant. So we met up and then got on very bloody well together. And the All Blacks were in the Grand Slam, so it must have been 65, sometime over in England. And yeah, so he'd sit there and watch all the test matches late at night, and he'd sit there and he made up heaps of his own jokes and that, and then he'd tell you one bloody joke, and that's shit, Billy, fucking do something better than that, and then it'd just click. And I heard a lot of them later on when he come back, before he actually passed away. He went back to his old days, but I took him to Alexander Park undercover. He'd lost half his weight size, and that with a hat on and dark glasses in the middle of winter, obviously, August, September, with dark glasses, and that went to the members' bar. There was only one joker, co-president of the Alexander Racing Park, and nobody bloody recognised him, so that was good. But what a mighty, mighty man.
Oh, God, yeah.
Lovely daughter, Angela. He had a lot of problems, as people would probably remember, with the far now, where they wanted his body and that, which was a bit of a shame, but a nicer joker. But he just never stopped. His mind was always working on jokes and that, yeah.
I remember as a kid we would never miss the Billy T. James show.
No.
That would be a crime. He has to be one of our top comedians of all time.
He still is, and thank Christ I've got a lot of his stuff and they still play it back.
Yeah, thank God for YouTube. I watch a lot of his stuff still.
Yeah.
I bet a lot of people do.
And it's just, as I said, it was just all off the cuff, and I don't know how much stuff he had written for him. And he was another one like Jonathan Thurston. He had that bloody laugh of his own. So that mad laugh you heard when he's telling jokes, but that was actually in his real life too. And that I can remember getting locked out because there's a place called Hardy Towers, and I'd been out with a friend for a meal, and you had to be back in by 7 in the middle of winter, so I had to get up. There only one window open, and it was no bastard would let me in, so I was up the drain pipe and through. There was a 3-story building. We're on the second, Hardy Towers, and the only window open was Billy T. James. So they got in up the drain pipe, through the window, and into his toilet and the shower and that. And then I thought, geez, I'm not opening the toilet door into his bedroom, so I knock on the door, and I got to yell out to him, come in, hang on, I'll get up and open the door. And he got up. The time he was opening the door, I was in behind him. Where the hell did you come from? But yeah, great memories, great memories, and great people. They made a movie. There was five of them there waiting for different heart operations. And they actually, I can't remember what. They were all dressed up as cowboys and Indians, actually, but they actually made a 40-minute movie when I was up there.
Oh, yeah.
With them, yeah.
Because he's buried now on Townsbury Hill, isn't he?
Yes,
I think
yeah.
So. I know.
Yeah.
That's right. I used to drive past it every day.
Yeah.
From Hamilton to Auckland.
Yeah.
It's that was a great chain. Oh, I remember that. That's sort of like meeting Fred Dagg or something. Really, maybe even better. I think.
Yeah, well, that was right. And that he was kind of in those days and he was right in your face all the time. He was as big as life, and he was right in your face on the TV. And I think that was a coming of age for our comedians in New Zealand with him, with the photography and that, not at the distance where they were coming right into your face and that. And he loved every bloody second of it.
That was the sort of, that was the like McPhail and
Gadsby and sort of stuff. Yes, yeah.
I used to see them a bit knocking around Christchurch.
Yeah, they were bloody characters.
That's a whole different story.
Are they both gone now?
I'm not sure.
Gadsby's gone. I'm not too sure, but yeah.
They were brilliant.
They were great, weren't they?
So we're getting ahead of ourselves. Yeah. But that's all right. So we'll just shoot back a little bit. Sorry, I turned the phone off here. Idiotic. Here we go.
Yeah,
So-
once I start going.
I love it, mate. So when you'd finished playing, you decided to do a bit of coaching.
In 2 terms for the Westport Football Club, so then I was player coach in the last couple of years. Then I had a couple of seasons coaching, managed after that, so I was tied up virtually all my life with the White Rugby Club. Done the president for first stint 11 years, and then I think I was the only one that's ever come back and done a second stint of 9 years. So yeah, it's been good, but it's been my life, the sporting life, tied up with rugby, and then coached that, and then I went on and coached with my 3 boys. They under 16s and under 18s, so I took them through, me and my good mate Gary Southern. So we've done 10 or 11 years touring around the South Island tournaments. So that was that was a great experience with those boys. Then after that I had the Buller Development Squad, where I had my 3 sons, one game down in Greymouth, Wayne, Michael and Spider, the 3 of them. They all got a try in that one game against Coast, the 3 of them, so that was good. But 2 of them got sin binned, and I can still remember their mother going off, because what happened to the 3rd one? He got ordered off. So that was good. So 3 tries, 2 sin bins and an ordering off, and we still won the game, thank goodness. But yeah, that's good. And coached a couple of games with the Buller team when the coaches have been away. So only one game with the A team over in Banks Peninsula. So I've got a 100% record with the Buller senior team.
Oh, that's
But
pretty good.
heaps of games, and one other go I had the development squad. I had a few years doing that, and the under 18s, and we had a curtain. Shows you how much rugby's gone back with the less numbers now. So actually, I was coaching 2 teams playing against one another, the Buller Development Squad and the Buller Under 18, and then we had the senior team, which was those days we might only had 2 or 3 imports. So that's how good it was around the town, how strong it was. Yeah.
I remember watching some of the Canterbury Buller games back in the day.
Yeah.
And Buller used to have a pretty strong team.
We had one game with the bloody Fergie McCormick, the good old mate,
I know
who's since
Fergie.
passed, and we scored. Bobby Lucas scored, converted it. They made it 5-0. Then Fergie kicked 2 penalties. That made it 6-5 at half time. We scored again and converted, made it 10-6. He kicked a penalty, made it 10-9 with about 3 minutes to go. He kicked another penalty. We got beaten 12-10, and 2 tries to 0. So this day and age, we would have won that bloody game.
Well, that's right.
So
That's right.
That's the other bloody thing.
Did you try tackling them?
No, the other side and that. No, after trying to tackle David Duckham, I give up tackling. Not really. No, he was good. No, the first one I actually marked in the Canterbury game. My first couple of games for Buller was on the wing, and they had a good in that game, and I actually marked Tony Steele, who's the New Zealand sprint champion, 100-yard sprint champion.
I remember it.
But thank Christ he never got the ball. He never got round me anyhow. He's been around long enough, he knew how to cheat. They had a good year in Pertwell, so they had very good, strong teams. Yeah, he played on the other wing.
Oh, God.
We had a random fairly Shield game over there, and we only got beaten. It was a Wednesday game. We got beaten 13-8 or something. They scored in the last couple of minutes, and I think out of that team, the All Blacks were away to be fair, but out of that team, I think there was 8 All Blacks come out of that team that we played over there, and then played in a Renfrew Shield game up in North Auckland against. We got a bit of a dicking up there with all the goings, and that 3 goings, and they had about 6 or 7 All Blacks in their team too. One Maori winger, Dennis Panther, he was on the verge and he gave rugby away. He played 99 first-class games, Dennis. And that, they had an old, well, not so old, large joker, number 8, Lally Hayden. He was about 38, 39, unheard of in those days. He was an amazing rugby player. Yeah.
I remember the goings.
Yeah.
Dynasty. Really.
So I had one of my mates here. I just went and seen him in Melbourne. He's on to Alice and that, and had a reunion, and one of my son's bosses who I'd met in Ireland, and I rung him. He comes home to Wellington, and I'd rung him this Christmas when we went up to the Sevens, and I always used to catch up, and he says, no, I'm up in the Goings reunion. And then when I said to Humphrey just yesterday, I says, how come your brother's up there and related to them? And he says, I'm married to Sid Going's sister. Well, my sister is married to Sid Going. So, yeah, it's a small world. All the years he was here and played rugby, he never ever mentioned Sid Going this is his brother-in-law. Couldn't have been famous enough.
Oh, wow. I remember my dad and I went to see a North-South game where Sid Going scored under the post, almost lying down. He was running almost bent completely over. He was just an amazing
He was amazing. He took over from the days of Chris Laidlaw and them, the long passing days. And I can remember when he first made the All Blacks, half the bloody country was up in the air because he was the running halfback. But he certainly proved his worth, that man.
Well, he was like an extra forward too.
Yeah, he was. He's just lightning. And as you said, he was that short and running low to the ground. And
I think one of the first memories I have of watching the All Blacks on TV was the commentary when he was going.
Go on. Yeah.
I remember that.
Going.
So that was incredible.
That's the other one. We're going back when I was at high school, and they had most of the listeners will know Don Clarke. So he came to the high school. He was sponsored by Paul Moore in those days, and I'd been doing a bit of goal kicking. I was good enough in those days. And Jack Hughes, the school teacher, so they got out and we're doing an exhibition. And 2 or 3 of us got invited. I was at high school at the time, and we were kicking kick for kick in bare feet, as he done exhibition stuff after town, and that was there. And I think I matched him 4 or 5. I'll never forget it. And then I got told to get out of here. Not that I was stiff to do any better, but yeah, just keeping up. So that was one of these bloody claims to fame or that way. Yeah, the great D.B. Clarke. Yeah, that was good.
That's a name.
Name Clarke.
Here's a trick question for you.
Yeah.
Who was the best number 8 you ever
coached? Now, I'm not going to say Thomas Stewart. So that's where we can change that subject. Ask Alex. Alex will know. No, Thomas was very good. And he's, I love taking the shit out of Thomas and that. I always said to Thomas and that, and I get him every time. I say, how many tries did you get, Thomas, for Buller? And he looks at me, you stupid old bastard, 33 or 35, whatever it is, anyhow. And I say, how many did you get? And then he'll tell me in the end, he goes, how many did you get? And I says, 3 or 4. But I says, I had about 100 assists and tries. I says, you never had 1 assist because you never ever passed the ball. So that gets him going to this day.
So, what are the memories you've got of that Aussie game? Because that Aussie game here, I've actually heard people talk. It's been in the paper twice since I've lived here. It's only in 2 years.
On the Saturday before, we'd won the Seddon Shield down in Greymouth. And that's the biggest thing in rugby around here. It's all the Seddon Shield districts, Nelson, Marlborough. Used to be Golden Bay till they combined Buller and Coast. And I can remember Coast going up and defeating Nelson Bays against all odds. And Nelson had a very strong team. And you know in your own thing you're going to have to cause an upset to beat them. But when Coast had upset them and brought it down, we were in with a chance. So we went down and we beat West Coast and come home, not by much. I think they were leading at half time. And we come home and their manager was one Bill Craddock, who also was the mayor. So he had to invite himself into the town, to the reception sort of thing, into the town, back with things sort of thing. But anyhow, we done that. So that continued on, and that was a Sunday night booze up. Then on the Monday, we had a training run. The Coast boys come up after work. We come up early, and we had a training run. Every bugger's still hung over and that. So we run the booze out. We get run into the ground for 20 minutes hard work. There was not much thing, and then that was put away to thing. Then you always went back to the cos. Old Kevin Pratt, a good friend, had put on a counter lunch, and we'd have a couple of beers. Brumble Mum was one of the coaches, along with the coach, Tom Bird, and we had a couple. And then he says, "Come on, boys, away home." We had one Landon R, who was the captain, myself and Brian Morgan. We're looking at one another going home after 2 beers. That's not after us, the trainer. So he says, "Come on." Lander says, "We'll go down the Black and White and have a couple at the back bar with Ross Burrows, who was an ex-Wallaby player and identity around the town." So he gets into the back bar, and lo and behold, all the hierarchy of the Australian rugby team was sitting in there. None of the players, all the coach, Bob Templeton, and the coaches and that. So we were just sitting talking to them. They had no idea we were playing against against them. And we had 3 or 4 beers. We were there for an hour, and that was our lot, and probably home by 9 o'clock. And then played the next day, and then Julie won. And we were over in the community centre having the after-match function where all the local identities and around the town and the dignitaries were there. And Bob Templeton's tapped me on the shoulder. Were you in the black and white last night? A couple of your mates. No, why? You look mighty. No, I says we were sent down here to get all your logs and all the bullshit out of here, which didn't happen. He says, "Holy Christ!" and that, and then I told him about the Ranners game and that. So yeah, they were great, and they didn't have that good of a touring team that year, but they were great people. They accepted the defeat on bloody thing.
Yeah, I mean we tend to give Aussies a hard time, but they're a pretty good bunch, aren't they? Really
good.
Yeah, of course they are. I remember Bob Templeton. He was before the bloke won the World Cup, wasn't he? That coach after him was.
I know who you mean. Yes.
Yeah, he was actually a really good coach. So was Templeton.
Yeah.
Actually.
Well, Bob Templeton, he was Queensland. He was very good, and they'd taken him to the bloody top. And I can remember Canterbury. That's a good old days. Canterbury used to always play over there. Can't remember the name of the ground on Sunday afternoons, and all Brisbane would be there. That's just how it's changed and that. But I just can't think of that coach's name. But yeah.
See, we used to have in Canterbury. I don't know if we still do, but because they've lived there for years. But we used to have a special relationship with Queensland.
Yeah.
They'd especially pre-season, they'd come over and have a game on Lancaster Park every year. Every year.
That's right. Yeah.
And we used to go and watch it every year.
Yeah.
And we had a reciprocal game over in Brisbane.
So that Ranfurly Shield game, that was one of my better games of talking about that. And there was one I can remember going in and getting Inner Souls and Hallenstein's in the morning in the middle of the time. I walked in and one Ian Penrose, who was the captain of the Canterbury team, the team we were playing, just sitting talking to him in general, never mentioned that we were playing rugby to them. And then when Hardy and Thompson's thing, and after that game, and he played for New Brighton, he tried to get me to go over there, and I was 50-50 whether to go, and I ended up doing a bit of bar work, waiting for my job at the cement works, and so that could have been a different story, but no regrets staying here, Westport born and bred, so great.
Pretty good place, isn't it, mate? So, who was one of the hardest players that you played against?
Well, with and against was Jimmy Housel. Was probably, he was the hardest. I was sending write-ups about him, different things I've done, and that he'd hurt himself to hurt somebody. And we always seemed to have it over coast in the old days where your loose forwards could stand off and that and charge. They were virtually on top of the first 5, second 5 when they got well. But no, Jimmy House would be good. Wally Forsyth was great, probably the best back ever to come out of here. Tackling and very explosive. I thought he went to Wellington, got on the piss and left his boots behind, turned up to training, so got told to bugger off, and that was the end of his chance. So that was an All Black trial match, yeah. So he was right there. Him and I think Derek Arnold then went on and played for the All Blacks that same year. Good Canterbury man, as
Derek
you'd
Arnold.
know.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So,
how many games did you end up playing for Bull?
about 90 odd, 12 years, yeah. I only missed one game.
Bloody hell, Gerald.
Well, I didn't even miss one game. I got dropped and I got on in the second half.
So you never forgot your boots?
No, never again.
Well, I'll tell you what, Gerald, this has been incredibly interesting chat.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed it thoroughly.
Oh, good.
And I'm hoping that you will be able to get you back, mate.
It certainly will. I've enjoyed every second. It just shows you how quick the time goes.
It does.
It's really just scraping the bloody bottom of it once you start.
It's hard not to keep jumping ahead. It's difficult, but there's some great stories, mate.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure that's just scratching it.
Yeah, I've got some good cricket ones and that we can go back to, and
that's for the next one.
softball sort of stuff, and there's all that sort of stuff.
Oh, you play softball too?
Yeah, played it. Oh, well, I was very strong back in the days and that, yeah. So we had Hutt Valley were very good, and when the Wilkinson Davies were doing the third erection out the works, and they had a joker called John Ellingsworth that come down, and head coach. He was right on the verge of New Zealand, head coach for Hutt Valley. So as you know, it's a good pitcher and a catcher combination. You can go play. So yeah, so we'd won the Seven Shield districts, and that was a while ago now. But yeah, Bulla was very, very strong and stuff. But that's another story for another day.
Yeah, it's a good sporting place.
Yeah,
though,
it's
isn't it,
very
really?
good. Yeah.
And the Hutt Valley, isn't that where, I've got a funny feeling that's where softball in New Zealand started.
Started, yes, it was. It was very
It's a
good.
factory up there, wasn't it?
Yeah, so they had the softballers out there. That was great. They had the other. Who was a good cricketer that was there? The fast bowler.
I don't know, but the Wellington people are going to hate us after this.
Yeah. The taxi driver. I was only talking to him at the last Test match, with the cricket match. So, but we'll get back to that.
We'll get
I'll
back to it, mate.
I'll remember his name, and he'll remember me, anyhow, because we had a good chat with him.
I bet he's going to remember you.
After the game. Great day. So yeah, so we've got a bit of social life, and that's part 2. There'll be social trips around the world. And
Oh, looking forward to it, mate. Listen, thanks again. It's been
No,
fantastic.
thank you for giving me the opportunity. Brilliant.